am about to address some things as the supervisor. There will be no comments. There will be anything that will be me addressing you guys to tell you what's going on.
Weird. It's so weird. It really is like the whole country's hypnotized. And I just think this is a perfect storm of
Tiffany Henyard, the first female mayor of Dalton, Illinois, is now at the center of a political firestorm that has not only rocked her leadership, but turned the local political scene into a high-stakes drama. When Henyard assumed office in 2021, she was hailed as a trailblazer and praised for her potential to bring much-needed change to the town. Yet, her time in office has quickly spiraled from hope and promise to one plagued with allegations of intimidation, questionable employment practices, and the misuse of power. The situation took a darker turn when residents began expressing fears of retaliation for voicing concerns about her leadership. Many are now left wondering what consequences they might face for simply speaking out against their once promising mayor. As the pressure mounts, the town has become gripped by a cloud of mistrust that only intensified when high-profile figures like Joe Rogan publicly condemned her actions, thrusting the scandal into the national spotlight. For Dalton's residents, the fear is palpable. The once promising leadership of Henyard has given way to a toxic atmosphere, where speaking out is viewed as dangerous. Tensions between Henyard and the community have reached unprecedented heights, with accusations that she has resorted to underhanded tactics to silence critics. The core values of public service, transparency, accountability, and open dialogue seem to have been abandoned, replaced by a culture of fear. This irony is not lost on the people of Dalton, who now question whether Henyard is truly dedicated to serving them, or if her actions reveal a deeper commitment to silencing dissent rather than engaging with the community. What started as an exciting chapter in Dalton's history now stands as a cautionary tale of how quickly a leader's actions can erode public trust and transform promise into scandal. As the fallout continues, the key question remains: can Henyard weather the storm, or will she destroy everything she's worked for? With her political future in question and mounting legal and public challenges, Henyard must confront the reality of the situation she has helped create. The stakes have never been higher, and Dalton is waiting for answers. Will Henyard manage to reclaim her position? Or will this chapter mark the end of her controversial leadership? Only time will tell as the political drama unfolds.
Appearance at the Dalton Village Board meeting this evening. That meeting was being held at the Park District building since Village Hall cannot legally accommodate.
The situation in Dalton, Illinois, has escalated into a deeply troubling political crisis, one marked by fear, frustration, and growing public disillusionment. At the heart of this unrest is Mayor Tiffany Henyard, whose leadership style has drawn sharp criticism for its lack of transparency, accountability, and alleged abuse of power. What began as a promising tenure has swiftly unraveled into accusations of intimidation, retaliation, and a disregard for democratic principles. The controversy intensified after a recent Village Hall meeting was abruptly canceled due to a lack of quorum, deepening the already palpable frustration among the community. For residents, the sense of disenfranchisement is overwhelming. Henyard's TVE administration is now associated with an environment where dissent is not tolerated. Locals fear that speaking out against the mayor could result in retaliation, personal scrutiny, or even political persecution. This growing atmosphere of intimidation has turned Dalton into a town where the right to voice concerns has become a dangerous act. Many have compared the climate to political oppression, with some describing their experiences as living under a regime that uses fear to silence opposition. The situation has become so dire that protests and public demonstrations are on the rise, as residents demand answers and accountability. Henyard, once seen as a symbol of progress and empowerment, is now accused of prioritizing her own political survival over the needs and voices of the people she was elected to serve. In a community where public service is supposed to be about transparency and responsibility, many now see Henyard's actions as a blatant abuse of power. The national spotlight on the scandal grew brighter when prominent podcaster Joe Rogan condemned Henyard's alleged tactics. Rogan's no-holds-barred commentary brought Dalton's issues into the broader political discourse, amplifying the concerns of local residents and sparking a nationwide conversation about unchecked political power. Rogan's influence resonated widely, raising awareness about the dangers of leaders who resort to fear and intimidation to maintain control. Despite the national backlash, Henyard's behavior continued to fuel controversy, as allegations of retaliation against critics intensified. The fear of reprisals has taken root deeply in Dalton, and many residents now feel vulnerable when expressing their concerns, further eroding the trust between the mayor and the people she leads. Adding to the growing public unease are concerns about Henyard's financial management. Allegations of financial mismanagement have surfaced, with reports suggesting that Henyard has used taxpayer dollars for personal luxuries, including expensive vacations and high-end dining, while essential services such as public safety and infrastructure maintenance have been left underfunded. This reckless spending has become a focal point for criticism, with residents questioning whether their hard-earned tax dollars are being misused to fund the mayor's lavish lifestyle. The combination of Henyard's questionable leadership decisions, alleged use of intimidation tactics, and financial mismanagement have created a perfect storm of discontent. These actions have not only divided the community, but also sparked wider questions about the abuse of power in local government. Many residents now feel betrayed by a mayor who appears to have exploited her position for personal gain, leaving the town's needs neglected in favor of her own ambitions. To make matters worse, Henyard recently hired Brinley, a lawyer with a controversial and ethically questionable history, including representing disgraced R&B singer R. Kelly. This decision has only deepened the skepticism surrounding Henyard's judgment and raised further questions about her priorities. Critics argue that Henyard's choice to align herself with someone of Brinley's reputation reflects a deeper commitment to consolidating power rather than serving the best interests of the community. The hiring decision, combined with the increasing scrutiny over her personal spending, has led many to believe that Henyard is more interested in protecting her own position than addressing the legitimate concerns of Dalton's residents. With the public's trust in Henyard's leadership all but evaporated, calls for transparency, ethical conduct, and responsible governance have reached a crescendo. The community is demanding accountability, and the pressure on Henyard to address the growing concerns has never been greater. As investigations into her actions continue, the question remains: how far is Henyard willing to go to protect her position? And more importantly, will the residents of Dalton ever regain the trust they once had in their local government? The situation has become more than just a local political issue. It has evolved into a national conversation about the erosion of civil liberties, the abuse of power, and the need for accountable leadership at all levels of government. The people of Dalton are now facing a critical moment in their history, one that will determine whether they will reclaim control of their town or if they will be left under the shadow of a controversial and divisive administration. The stakes have never been higher, and the road ahead remains uncertain as the battle for Dalton's future continues to unfold. The financial scandals surrounding Mayor Tiffany Henyard have sparked a growing demand for her to be held accountable. As frustration continues to build within Dalton, calls for a new leader who will prioritize the well-being of the town and its citizens over personal interests are intensifying. Henyard's leadership is increasingly seen as an obstacle to the much-needed reforms and change within the community. The town's atmosphere has become toxic, with residents feeling silenced and intimidated, unable to voice their concerns without fear of retaliation. This growing climate of fear has only amplified criticism of Henyard's leadership style, with many accusing her of fostering an environment where open dialogue and debate are stifled. Trust in local government has been severely damaged, and many believe Henyard's administration is to blame for the divide between officials and the people they were meant to serve. The fact that residents are too afraid to speak out due to the fear of retribution speaks volumes about the environment Henyard has allowed to thrive. As public outrage grows, Henyard's reputation has plummeted. What was once seen as a hopeful tenure for Dalton's first female mayor has now become a cautionary tale of unchecked power and the erosion of public trust. Henyard is increasingly viewed as a self-serving politician more focused on maintaining power than serving the community. Her refusal to address the rising concerns and provide the transparency the town demands only strengthens this perception. Dalton's situation has reached a tipping point, a reflection of the widening gap between Henyard's leadership and the community's desires. As political drama unfolds, the future of Henyard's office hangs in the balance. With every controversial decision, the pressure for her to be held accountable only grows. Dalton is at a crossroads, and many believe it's time for Henyard to step aside to allow new leadership to restore trust and order. Whether or not the residents will succeed in demanding the change they so desperately need remains unclear. But one thing is certain: Henyard's leadership, coupled with the ongoing scandals, has placed Dalton in a critical position. The future of the town and its government will depend on how this situation is resolved in the coming months. Once considered a promising start for Henyard, her tenure has now spiraled into a full-blown political crisis, with increasing calls for her resignation. Public dissatisfaction with her leadership has dominated conversations, and it's clear the tide of public opinion has turned against her. The community that once hoped for change under its first female mayor is now confronting accusations of financial mismanagement, abuse of power, and an environment marked by fear and distrust. Residents are demanding answers, united in their call for a new leader who embodies accountability and transparency. At the heart of this crisis is Henyard's authoritarian approach to leadership. Critics argue that her actions have fostered an environment in which residents are too intimidated to speak out or criticize their elected officials. This climate of fear has only strengthened the demand for a change in leadership, with many calling for a mayor who demonstrates honesty, integrity, and responsibility. Henyard's financial mismanagement and heavy-handed tactics have shattered the trust essential for a healthy democracy. As the situation worsens, it's clear that Dalton is at a crossroads, with many feeling it's time for Henyard to step down and let someone else take charge. Pressure on Henyard to resign continues to mount as each day passes. The scandal surrounding her leadership has deepened to the point where it seems her ability to regain the trust of the community is increasingly uncertain. For many in Dalton, the damage is already done, and they are ready for a leader who can restore integrity to their local government. Someone who will prioritize the needs of the people over their own personal interests. With growing dissatisfaction, many residents are beginning to question whether these issues are unique to Henyard's leadership or part of a larger systemic problem within Dalton's governance. The criticisms of Henyard's actions have led to widespread calls for greater transparency and accountability. Yet, instead of addressing these concerns, Henyard has taken a defensive approach, claiming to be the victim of a political smear campaign. While this narrative may resonate with some, it does little to calm the anger of those who feel betrayed by her actions. Henyard's insistence on portraying herself as the victim, rather than acknowledging her role in the crisis, has led many to question her leadership style. This defensive posture is seen as a way to deflect blame rather than take accountability for her decisions, further eroding public trust. Henyard is now embroiled in several legal battles, which have only intensified the community's skepticism. These lawsuits, centered around accusations of illegal appointments and financial mismanagement, have become a focal point of the public's scrutiny. As the legal proceedings unfold, the stakes are higher than ever, with residents growing increasingly frustrated by the lack of answers and transparency from their mayor. Despite the pressure, Henyard has refused to engage meaningfully with the community. Her reluctance to address the growing concerns only reinforces the perception that she is more interested in preserving her position and reputation than in meeting the needs of Dalton's residents. As the political drama unfolds, the question remains, can Henyard weather the storm and regain the trust of her community? The future of Dalton's leadership hangs in the balance, and the tension in the town is palpable. What makes the situation even more intriguing is the broader conversation it sparks about leadership and accountability in local government. Once seen as a hopeful chapter for Dalton, Henyard's tenure has become a cautionary tale about how unchecked power, a refusal to take responsibility, and a lack of transparency can unravel a political career and erode the trust of an entire community. The legal battles and the public's demand for answers have cast a dark shadow over Henyard's leadership. With so much at stake, it's unclear whether she can navigate these challenges and emerge stronger, or whether the allegations and legal battles will ultimately force her to step down. The situation in Dalton raises important questions about the role of public officials and their responsibility to uphold transparency and accountability. Should public officials be held to the same standards as the rest of society? Are they allowed to operate behind closed doors, free from scrutiny? Or should they be subject to the same level of oversight as anyone else? These are the questions residents of Dalton are grappling with, forcing them to examine the leadership they expect from their elected officials. As the controversy in Dalton continues, many residents are reflecting on what true leadership should look like. Henyard's failure to engage with the public, her focus on self-preservation, and the ongoing financial scandals have left the community questioning her commitment to public service. Dalton's crisis is not just about one individual's failure. It's about the values that should guide public officials and whether those values are being upheld. The situation has raised important questions. Is Henyard's fate sealed, or is there still hope for redemption? As residents demand greater transparency and leadership that prioritizes their welfare, they are determined to regain their voices and ensure their concerns are addressed. This political drama serves as a stark reminder of the importance of local politics and how the actions of those in power can directly impact the community. It forces all of us to consider whether we are willing to hold those in power accountable and demand more from our elected officials, especially those entrusted with public office. As Dalton's residents continue to demand change, the question remains: who will emerge as the leader they can trust to guide them toward a brighter future? The fate of Mayor Tiffany Henyard and the future of Dalton's local government are intertwined, and how this saga concludes will have far-reaching implications for the community and for the broader conversation about leadership, accountability, and the role of public officials in the modern world. The drama is far from over, but one thing is certain: the pressure is mounting, and Dalton's future hangs in the balance.